Welcome back to Krown's Blackout Cave as we get started for an absolutely absurdly early morning over here. It's getting started before the ripe old early hour of 7 a.m. Anyways, plenty to talk about today, mostly with world markets actually, and especially with the monthly closure coming later tonight for, well, everywhere, as it is the last day of September. There's plenty to talk about with the long term. So today is going to be a big setup day for the months to come, and there's actually a lot of things, especially within traditional markets and Forex land right now, that are kind of speaking towards, well, some short-term fun action. Anyways, with that said, I want to put the focus over here on the Krown Chain application, which can be found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see? We see that the open interest still is in that same range. We have not seen a break of the price action range between 10,000 and 11,000. And on open interest, that would likely correlate with the range between about 1.9.5 billion to 2.1.5 billion. Looking at Bitcoin dominance, pretty much steady from yesterday to today, as well as holding its own range actually too, between about that 58% and that 59% on the upside. And the fear and greed index also showing a 4-point increase from a 45 to a 49 as well. And other than that, do we see anything of interest in the data tab, as everything's been mostly sideways on the dashboard for the last week and a half to 2 weeks? And we see mostly the same. Actually, we see mostly the same. Bitcoin global funding rate is pretty much holding the same range between 0.03% and 0.04%. This is the first time it's actually maintained above the 0.01%, which is kind of like par for the course for a prolonged period, but still not really much to be made out of that. I want to see this get above 0.1% or below negative 0.1% in order to start to look for potential major macro tops or bottoms. But for right now, just kind of holding the range and not really much to be made out of that, with a slight tint to the upside. And let's go over here into the actual price action charts themselves. And I want to start off with, we'll start off with Bitcoin, I suppose. Now, Bitcoin chart right here is actually a little more difficult to read. You can see it just chopping around the 55 and the 21, of which both these major moving averages are going mostly flat and sideways, which tells us what? It tells us that Bitcoin is, well, going mostly flat or sideways, and that's exactly what we fucking see over the last, week or so now, going all the way back to the 24th of September, almost, exactly 1 week ago. So with that said, there's not really much to be made out of this chart right here. Kind of just weird and sideways. The real things to be aware of are on traditional markets right now and Forex, actually, which I think are a lot more obvious. And seeing as we do see a strong correlation between Bitcoin and especially traditional markets like our tech sectors like NASDAQ and XLK, we could look for clues within those to kind of govern what's going to be the next likely move here, as Bitcoin, again, on the daily right here, it's not really giving me much. So let's actually go over here, and I want to start it off actually with, where is it? Where are you? There you are. Found you, NASDAQ. Yeah, NASDAQ's looking like a local high. We did say yesterday that sideways for a day and taking out yesterday's low would very likely put this as a local high. Now, technically speaking, this has not been fully confirmed just yet, but it is in progress right now, and any sort of a closure, especially below basically where we are here or lower, below 11,300-ish region, and I would be looking for a short-term move back down to about 11,100-ish, and potentially a move into next week back down around to test our prior lows at the 10.8 to 10.9 region. So for right now, this one is looking a lot more toppy to me, which does speak likely towards the inherent toppiness in the short term for Bitcoin as well. Now we'll look at the monthly soon too, but I just want to kind of start off with this because this is like the only thing that's giving me a major bias boner right now. Looking at the 4 hour, yes, it is being rejected by the 4 hour 200 simple moving average and back down, and we're going to see momentum also just turn in the same direction as well. 4 hour still coming back down after that nice little rejection, plus 4 hour RSI confirming a local high and getting kicked out of the bullish control zone right there as well. So I do believe that this one is a lot more angled to the downside, probably going to retest around 11,000 in the next day or two to come. Looking at historical volatility percentile, are we going to see anything interesting on the 4 hour? Not really, but I don't really like to use it on this time frame. It's actually a lot more relatable on the very, 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 very short term time frames. And what do you know? We are actually coming off of an extremely low read, which was printed yesterday, actually a zero read, quite literally, or it wasn't necessarily zero, but it was in the decimals, so to speak. So that is incredibly low, and typically does beget some nice moves. Going back on over here to the last time that we saw a slew of kind of low-ish periods of volatility. That was on the last big breakout. From this region right here to the upside, and then several more times actually you can kind of just govern all of these short-term moves, actually even based upon that, which is really, 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 really useful. And seeing as it has been in a more prolonged contraction phase right here, we would kind of read that out as likely to beget a little bit more of an intense move, as it's been essentially winding up and coiling. Looking at hourly Joule, is that a hot or short signal? Yes, indeed it is. Not super powerful or anything like that. I don't like taking those signals, but I will hodl shorts on this if I do, if I do get in position, of which I'm not actually trading traditional markets, so it's kind of a moot point anyways. And I imagine that we're going to see the same thing on E-mini futures for SPY as well. And yes, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same fucking chart, right? Looking at this right here, the daily looks a lot more toppy to me. Another lower high in a slew of lower highs, and very likely, probably over the next week or two to come back down and test around 3250-ish region. Short term, I'd be looking for about 3300 even. And then maybe a smally bounce there. Yeah, somewhere around this region right here. Also, we can kind of measure this up with Forex as well and check out Dixie, which obviously Bitcoin and most major assets are going to trade obtuse to, or is it obtuse or just opposite of? Yeah, don't even know my English well enough. But yeah, looking at this right around here, we do see that Dixie is in a bouncy bounce territory as well. We do see it's coming off the hourly 200 simple, and it did just get its first little split up there. What I really want to be seeing now is I want to be seeing momentum oscillators turn with it. And well, what do we see on hourly Jewel? Kind of catching itself. Not necessarily a buy signal. I'd actually like to see this come back down and line up for a perfect buy signal while getting a positive slope on both these babies right here. That would look pretty damn good. And on top of that, what do we see on hourly Stokes popping back up as well, but not anything too aggressive there. I'm curious what the 4-hour in the daily look like. Yeah, 4-hour looks like it's got some upside, probably back up to about $94, 94 and 94 and a dime. 4-hour historical volatility percentile is actually very interesting right here, getting back down to a single digit read as well. So we are lining up for a move very likely soon. It'd certainly not be out of the realm of possibility to actually see a nice move back up today, maybe all the way back up to even 94 and a quarter is what I'm trying to say, or 94 and 20. But realistically right now, this has been more or less a bullish reset. We did say coming into this week, very likely the week was going to open up on a pullback back down to $94. I believe that we've seen that thus far, actually even getting a little bit below there towards about 93.80 it looks like. But as long as it maintains this level, which we can see, you can just kind of visualize a nice little horizontal within this region. I would be looking at this as a nice little bouncy bounce area. Now, if we do start to really fail below this region, which is actually more so like this right here at about 93 and 3/4, then I would be looking for a big bad retracement, actually all the way back down to 92.5. But for right now, looking fine to me. I don't really see any major issues with this. The only issue that I do see right now on a daily is with daily Stokes. But keep in mind that daily Stokes are going to be like this during strong trending moves. So this would be the one big counterpoint to what I'm saying right now. But here's the thing: it is a monthly closure later tonight, and we're going to do this for all major assets. But we'll start it off with Dixie because we're right here already. And what do you know? Looking at monthly, it is going to be a bullish engulfing. If it does close anywhere here or higher, that's going to look pretty damn good, and also confirm hidden bullish divergence along the way as well, which if that does happen, which it is in progress right now, then I would be looking for moves back up towards about 96 to $97. But of course, the long day to go. If this one does end, especially below, let's call it like 93.5, then we'll have some problems. And by problems, I mean, well, nothing would really be confirmed coming into next month. This would still look, more or less sideways, and not really too much to be based off that. Obviously, the hidden bullish divergence would go by the wayside, and we wouldn't really have much clarity on the situation. So I'd really like to see a close again here or higher. Anywhere above $94 looks good to me for continuation up into the next few months. Probably back up towards 96.5 to $97, and then we'll come back and re-analyze that one as well. I imagine we probably see the same thing on Eurodollar, which is popping back up to the same relevant region as well. And what do you know? It's going to have a chance to get a bearish engulfing in a slew of a 12-year long downtrend here, getting rejected once again at the 200 exponential moving average. But again, I want to see this fully confirmed tonight. Obviously, weirder things do happen, and if you are going to see some sort of tricksy behavior, typically going to come at the end of the month while people do kind of posture and jockey for the monthly closure. But for right now, it is in play, and I would like to see this fully confirmed, and then we can actually have some fun stuff coming into next month. Anyways, go back to Bitcoin here, and let's see what Bitcoin's got on the monthly. Bitcoin on the monthly is a little bit strange, as as long as it's closing above 10,800-ish region, long-term macro, we're still trending to the upside and still looking, very good. Even long-term, we're in an uptrend as long as we're above about 8,000 or wherever this last low was right here. Actually, that's much further below, somewhere around about 6,400-ish region. So realistically, Bitcoin could come down quite a bit on the monthly scale and still maintain a long-term uptrend. The problem is, though, is that, if you, as a trader, is that really helpful to know that Bitcoin come down about $3,000 from here and still be in a macro uptrend? Probably not. And that's probably only really relevant to like the true hodlers of the world, of which I suspect that there's probably not as many as people think there actually are, mostly because, until people actually have to deal with a little bit of downside, you don't really get actually tested. But looking at this right here, long term on a monthly, it is still healthy. Yes, absolutely. And we're also going to be closing the quarterly today as well. So we should go over that too. But as it is with the monthly, we should look at momentum oscillators. Monthly Stoch's going to be nice and angled to the upside. No problem with that. Monthly RSI going to be more or less constructive over the long period of time. Again, that does not necessarily speak towards the immediate bullishness of this, but long term, this would suggest that this is constructive behavior, of which the price action would look like as well. And monthly Joule, if I had to call, although I think that this is much too short of a history to be analyzing here, would be a kind of haughtier long signal, although that was really printed back around here in April, May, or sorry, what is this? Yeah, April, May, June. Still getting liftoff and still probably just get respected a little bit, but I think that I trust that a lot less. Anyways, go over and check out the quarterly as well and see how this one's going to be setting up. Is there anything of note here as well? Yeah, any sort of a closure above our last major high being printed in April, and what was this? Yeah, April in 2019 on that run to about 14,000 last year. Is going to be considered long-term good, but again, but once again, you can see here that we can come all the way back down very easily to the 10 simple on a quarterly schedule at 73.30, and that would be fine. I mean, it'd just be a backfill on the last quarterly open, about maybe even a little bit higher than that, and you could still maintain the uptrend. So that's kind of the picture that I'm painting right now. Bitcoin macro is bullish. Bitcoin macro is good as it stands. Just we have a massive range here, so I want to be very, 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 very careful going into the monthly and quarterly closure, because that's likely to speak into if there is still going to be a path forwards for some actual downside before this next melt up, I guess. Kind of getting a little bit ahead of myself right there, but you know what I'm saying. Anyways, looking at quarterly momentum oscillators, what do we see? We see quarterly Stokes. Well, for what's available of them, we could actually go to BLX index for a little bit more history. Even with that, it's not all that much, but it would be getting out of the bearish control zone for the first time in a very long time, in a couple of years, actually since 2018, and looking good there, of course, as well. And also, quarterly RSI is going to have a big chance here to actually get back into the bullish control zone for the first time since a very long time as well. We spent a very short time here in 2019 on that run to in that run to 10,000. Oh my God, man, I can't get my words out properly at all today. Jesus, man. 14,000 is the word that I'm looking for. Yes. And, but realistically, the last time that we were really hanging out within this region was all the years from about 27 to 2018, of course. So looking at that right there, long term, that would really set things in to be, rather nice and rather good. And also want to check out the accumulation distribution indicator as well, which we'll get into right now. More so on the monthly though. Anyways, actually it's right there. Nice. Okay, beautiful. And let's go back to the monthly right here. So again, I want to paint this picture of the long term being good, because that's what most of the charts say. I mean, that's quite literally what it's saying right here. Looking at the monthly accumulation distribution indicator, it is green and it is maintaining a positive slope. The next thing that I want to see is just maintaining its positive slope. I don't care if it turns red. Well, obviously if it turns red, it's gonna have a negative slope, no shit, but you get my point. It's like, I only care about the slope. If the slope loses a little bit of its curvature, that's fine, but as long as it stays positive, that's what we're looking for. And realistically, that would just be long-term good once again. So long-term, I am, assuming that these criteria are met, long-term is good. But what would be a good indication for tonight's monthly and quarterly closure that we're going to be seeing immediate pressure to the upside? Well, that would be actually rather simple right here. Any sort of a closure above our last printed high in June and July of 2019, which is actually both the same on the monthly and the quarterly, which is currently at about 10.8, we'll call it, a little bit below 10.8, but I'd like to give it a little bit of breathing room right there. Would look good for the more immediate upside long term. Now, if we do close below there, that's where I do think that the path back down to about 10,000 and 9,100 and potentially even 7,000 or 7,500, wherever our last kind of major low was, somewhere in this region right here, low 7,000s about, would still be available. So that likely does get confirmed, and we do get clarity on the situation later tonight. So what happens between now and the monthly closure is really, 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 really important. But my point is I don't want to be getting stuck on the low term timeframes. Anyways, with that said, seeing as we've gone over all the high term timeframes, now let's go over the fucking low term timeframes. How about that? By the way, I've been getting a shit ton of messages. Krown, what did you think about debate? First off, you don't want my opinion about the debate. I'm not a political person. I don't know shit about it. I am completely a fish out of water in that realm. What I can say though, from what I've read and what I've seen, is the only person who won that debate, I'll tell you right now, the only people actually who won that debate are the people who are enemies of America and who are watching from the outside looking in, being like, holy shit, you guys are fucked. And if we want to see the end of this empire, we can definitely this would be the time to do it right now, man. It so feels like we are seeing an end of empire situation, like, similar to the last days of Rome, Greece, shit like that. I spent a lot of time reading history, listening to history podcasts, and there are lots of similarities between what we see back in those falling of empires and what we see right now, which is actually like a little bit scary, seeing as I guess not really many people give a fuck about history, but it does tend to repeat itself. In fact, you might even say that history does maintain a trend, so to speak. Anyways, okay, so looking at the low term time frames for Bitcoin right here, what do we see on the 4-hour? 4-hour momentum is just floating around. Let's get rid of this. Get the fuck out of my face. What do we see on 4-hour RSI? Literally just sideways. Not really giving me too much right here. If I had to call it, I would say short term. This is really splitting hairs, by the way. Short term, slightly angled to the downside. There you go. Our caretaker is saying that there is potentially hidden bearish divergence. Nope, that would be wrong right there, because that's going to get undone. And that is why it is just dots and not a solid line. There you go. Okay, anyways, any sort of a closure below our current traded low in this region, which is about 10.6. And yes, I would be looking for that continuation back down to 10.350-ish region. I did say yesterday I'd overall be looking for a move back down to 10.350, but realistically with the monthly closure and the quarterly closure in the periphery, I would really rather put a lot more respect to that rather than like a 4-hour time frame, as these are going to lie a lot more, especially when the long-term timeframes are kind of like closing more proximally. Anyways, so looking at this right here, if I did have to call it, yeah, slightly downside angled. We do see 4-hour Stokes actually pointed up right now, pointing a little bit north, but under pressure. Let's see what Pig would have to say about that. Where is going to be needed to actually turn them back onto the downside? Yeah, any sort of a closure below 10,750-ish region. Looks like to me was this printed right around the debate? I actually don't know the timing on these sorts of things, but I'd imagine that this green dildo right here was actually printed somewhere around the time of the debate, as typically you will see kind of like floaty price action around something like that, and then immediately after it, which was probably like 3-4 hour debate, right, well, it gets sold into and we go back into parity essentially right around basically just basically hovering around the 10.7-ish region, hugging that line. So realistically, if we do see this next 4-hour dildo closure, which is coming in 3 hours and 28 minutes below essentially the 200 simple, which is currently at about 10,750-ish region, then yes, I would be looking for Bitcoin to give another test to the downside somewhere right around about 10.6. Looks like we do have some short-term support somewhere around that region, and assuming that area were to fail, if it were to fail, I should say, which can be done a couple of ways here. Either a 2-hour dildo closure below about 10,625, or a wick lower than what we saw on Friday on Friday low of last week, which is 10,550-ish region. Then yes, I would be looking for that continuation back down to the low side of the range. Next short-term target would be somewhere here at about 10,350, and then under there we still got 10,000 to deal with, or I guess 10.1 actually, depending upon which time frame that you're looking at. If you're looking at a 4-hour, it'd be 10,000. If you're looking at a daily, it'd be 10.1. But again, even if I were looking for Bitcoin to come all the way back down here, which now my charts are just a little bit too convoluted, by the way, sorry about that, I would, I'd actually still be looking for a bounce off of the $10,000 region or 10,100-ish region. Doesn't really matter where it comes in, but you can see that the 200 exponential moving average right here, the purple moving average on the daily, is going to start to meet up with that $10,000 base. So as long as Bitcoin's above there, I still look at this and treat this like a potential reversal from this region. And while we already have played out a pretty phenomenal bounce from it, getting about $1,500 from 9,800 to 11.2 right here, it's still just a range realistically. But within that range, and while that bounce has played out, again, as long as 10,000 is not broken, I technically look at this potential reversal point. But in order to confirm this as a reversal to the upside, what do we need to do? Well, for myself, I'd like to see an uptrend on the daily. And right now, we potentially have that in progress, actually. It is in the cards right here. So I could very easily get, short-term, medium-term, and long-term bullish extremely easily, actually, if Bitcoin did one of two things. Either a daily doodle closure on a new high, thus confirming an uptrend, as we'd have a low, high, higher low, and then higher high, and that would be with the daily closure above 11,100-ish region, or if we were to just get a wick higher than what we saw on last week's high at 11,179.90 on GDAX, that is. So of course, check your exchanges will be different, but or likely different, but one of those two things would actually put me into full, short-term, medium-term, and long-term bull mode. Macro hasn't really changed within this region, and realistically to the upside, the same areas that were relevant in August are going to be relevant once again as we kind of look forwards here. Somewhere around 11.5 would be of interest, somewhere around 11.8 would be of interest, and then of course 12 and some odd change would be of interest as well. So the upside is still very much viable here in the short term, but I just want to see it. I want to see it. What's the word that I'm looking for? I want to see proof, not promises, on this one. As long as we're below this level right here, I tend to err towards the downside as it is right now. But Bitcoin did have a couple chances to break yesterday. Did give a slew of tests down here, and we do have those rising wicks, which is typically good. So fair enough. I really want to hold a reservation on the short-term timeframes right now because I don't really feel all that confident with it, and I want to be very, very transparent and very forthright and very just I guess the word would be honest when I'm not feeling all that confident, because I don't think that it's right to speak on something like that, or just at least be or at least let you know where I'm coming from. What I do feel strongly about is traditional markets. Traditional markets are looking downside angled. Dixie is looking upside angled, and the monthlies are going to take a shit ton of precedence here. So that's really what I'm going to be having my focus on. And for right now, Bitcoin, if I did have to call it right here, it's mostly due to traditional markets, but I would be looking for some downside as well, probably back down to about 10,350-ish region. Again, assuming that we actually get a 2-hour delta closure below about 10,625 or a wick lower than what we saw on Friday low at 10,550-ish region. Both of those two things would be good enough for me to look for a short-term move down to like 10.3 or 10.350. Probably another short-term bounce there, and overall continuation implied back down to like 10,000 even or 10,100-ish region. That does not imply a breakage there though. And yes, could Bitcoin break within that region? Absolutely. That is still very much viable as well, but I want to see that happen first and foremost too. And if that does happen, then that's where I start to look back down towards about 91 or 9,200-ish region in line with the 377 and the 200 simple right here. And then if that area fails, then we can talk about moves down to mid to low 7,000s. But I really like to go level by level here. I really don't want to get caught up in the everlasting debate of moon or doom. It's silliness, because more often than not, you've seen this throughout the whole fucking month of September. Sideways. It's fucking sideways. It's a goddamn crab market. August, sideways in a range. It's $1,000 range, so there's a lot of trades to be made, of course. A lot of opportunity right there, but it is a range nonetheless. We're not we were not trending during that time. The trends happen over the course of really just like a few days. Few days up right here, spend like 3 months going sideways. Few days up right here, month sideways. Big move down right here in one day, month sideways. You get the idea, right? It's choppy and sloppy. But for what it's worth right now, that's I guess what I'd be looking at right here. Let's go over the 12-hour and see what this one's printing currently. Whoops, I just got ahead of myself. What is 12-hour saying? 12-hour Stokes are all the way at the tippy top near the critical zone once again now, aren't they? Let's see what would be needed to actually turn them back onto the downside. And yeah, any sort of a closure below the 21 exponential moving average today on this next closure, which is coming in 7 hours and 22 minutes below 10,700-ish region, yes, would turn these back onto the downside. That'd also be another damn good indication that we will come back down and test somewhere around 10,350-ish region, and probably lower than that over time. So fair enough. That actually does look a little more documentable right there. Looking at 12-hour RSI, flat as a fucking door. And other than that, man, I don't really have too much to make out of that. Looking like a greater contraction phase on 12-hour historical volatility percentile, but that's not really relevant to what we're looking at right now anyways. Jewel not giving shit here either. So really, cutting hairs and nails and teeth, or whatever the fuck the saying is on that one. Don't care. Doesn't matter. Looking at 10-hour right here. What do we see? 10-hour coming down as well, but not really giving us all that much. 10-hour. I mean, this is flat as fuck right here. I don't have any calls to be made off this, man. I need to be I need to be as transparent as possible. I don't have any calls to make off that. There's nothing for me. I'm not interested in this right here. The biggest reasons why I'm looking for short-term downside is, again, because of traditional markets and Forex. Other than that, not much. I don't really have much to go off of. Let's go look at the tech sector. How do they end the day? Yeah, ending the day as what looks like another lower high as well. full on bullish reset for the 4 hour Stokes right here, and 4 hour RSI. Do we see anything here as well? Yeah, we do have hidden bearish divergence actually, which is going to be between this point and this point. Now my look back period is a little bit on the shorter side right now, so it's actually not going to show it on Caretaker's RSI. I imagine if we go to like maybe a 6 hour, it will. Or actually no, it's not printing a local high right here just yet. That's why, yeah, we don't see any triangles here just yet. So, and that is technically right. This is technically not a local high confirmed as it is. Do we have anything on a lower term time frame already confirming it? 2 hours going to try, but still not there. It needs to close below about 115 for that to happen. But I'd be looking for this one to really spill on over into Bitcoin as well. Unfortunately, though, we don't see features for this. We only see this one trading during traditional market hours. So I do imagine that if we are going to see a move here today, it's probably going to happen around the time that traditional market's open for the U.S. 9:30 a.m. Eastern time is the time that you're looking for. And if we do start to come back down below those levels again, 115-ish region, this will start to confirm itself as a local high, and that'll initiate hidden bearish divergences on basically all time frames up to what? 10 hours, it can have it. Yeah, 10 hour will have it as well, actually. Yes. But again, needs to confirm a local high here first. Must happen. Otherwise, no dice. And if that does happen, then yeah, move back down to about 112 about 112 is what I'd be looking for. And that very likely does correlate with Bitcoin coming back down as well. As we've looked in the past, these guys have very, very strong correlation with each other. NASDAQ, tech sector, even E-mini futures for SPY, all going to be pretty much the same, but with a specific interest towards the techs as well. That's technically what Bitcoin kind of trades with. Anyways, what else do we want to check out while we're here? I guess we've checked out all the traditional markets. Do we want to check out these nonsenses over here? Maybe some Tesla action. What does Tesla look like? Does it look like another lower high as well? Probably yes, but I wouldn't call this one just yet. So I mean, technically still kind of in like a massive consolidation. We have higher lows right here, and we have lower highs right here. So it's getting caught between a rock and a hard place. I'd really just be waiting for the monthly closure. The monthly closure like this could be a little bit of a hangman dildo, but again, I'd really reserve judgment until we actually have clarity on the situation, because right now a lot of things can happen between now and the actual closure. Looking at Microsoft, I imagine more of the same. Yep, potential bearish engulfing in play, potential with any sort of a closure here or lower. What about Apple? Potential, well, it would have to come down quite a bit, back down below about 107 to put in a bearish engulfing. But for what it's worth right now, this would not look like the picture of health and fitness. Again, I want to see the closure, but a long day to go. What do we have on gold? Yeah, gold's another interesting one that I want to check out. We did say yesterday likely a rally back up to about 1900. I believe that we've gotten that. Yeah, we did get that. Now, if this one's going to remain bearish, I would actually expect it to get rejected right here. If it does pull through, which it's not looking like on the very short-term time frames, 4 hour looks a little bit like a local top. In fact, it is a local top. And what do you know? We got some hidden bearish divergence in progress here too, which will be confirmed on the next closure in 17 minutes and 48 seconds. So that's actually going to happen by the time that I post this video. Then I'd be looking for another move back down towards about 1870 to 1865 region. And this is, again, all set up for the monthly closure. Any sort of a closure, especially below last month's low, which was 1860 actually, which is kind of around that next target to the downside if that condition is met. Once again, that's why I really don't like getting ahead of myself near the end of the month. Then yes, we will have one major massive reversal here, and I'd be looking for targets to be initiated into October, November, December, down to low 1700s and probably even low 1600s over time. And then I'd be looking for big bounces off both those levels respectively, potential reversals implied there as well. Anyways, what about Link? Is Link going to be the darling of the market right here, or are we coming back down? We're coming back down, baby. We are coming motherfucking back down right here. Yeah, local high going to be confirmed right here. It looks like did get one triangle on this one right here according to Caretaker. I would actually put on this one right here, but it's more or less the same anyways. It doesn't really matter. What's more important though is, do we see any divergences? And no, we don't. No, actually not at all on the daily. What about the 12 hour? Do we see anything potential here? Yep, we see plenty of potential here. And yes, I would be looking for this one to be broadened back down towards about 83,000 Satoshis, somewhere around this region right here. Actually, this one is looking like it's really topped out for a while. Well, then again, I look at the weekly, and I really dislike getting bearish in a region like this. The short-term timeframes look down quite obviously. The weekly is this is like one of my rules. I do not short into this area ever until we actually fully break it. That's just one of my rules. So fuck, what do I do in a situation like this? I don't trade it. It's monthly closure is coming up, man. There's no reason to front run this. Monthly is just actually a backfill on last month open. So There you go too. I don't know, man. If one of them's going to pull through, I'd imagine it's going to be Link anyways. Let's go check out Mr. Buterol. Is he showing anything of note as well? Anything more obvious? On a monthly, potential to get a bearish engulfing here too. Probably, I guess it is. I guess it is certainly possible. That would happen with any sort of a closure, especially below like 340. We could see that. And of course, anywhere below 320 would be absolutely abysmal for this asset. So there you go. Those would be the most obvious things, and then initiate targets back down towards 250 coming into the rest of the year. But that's again, I want to see the monthly closure before talking about that a little bit more extensively. Looking at the 4-hour right here, it's looking a little bit anemic. Just looking at price action in general, what do we see? 4-hour RSI sideways as fuck. Again, it is going to be more or less the same as Bitcoin. 4-hour Stokes are looking like they want to get rejected from getting outside of the bearish control zone, so it would be more on the bearish side as well. Let's see what Pig has to say about that. Yep, they will turn to the downside, similar to Bitcoin, with any sort of a closure, basically here or lower, anywhere below 357. This is, by the way, on I think Poloniex actually, because it has the most price action history. So I keep the chart for that reason. But the prices are mostly the same within like a small deviation there. 4-hour Jewel might be lining up. No, not really. Kind of, but kind of not. Not something that I'd take anyways. Doesn't really matter. Not really interested in those calls. The very aggressive Jewel traders, they will. I'm not that person though. But yeah, if those do play out, I'd be looking for a move back down to about 340-ish region. And as you noticed on the monthly, anywhere below there on a monthly closure is going to start to look extremely bad. Yeah, that actually looked very, very bad. Well, I mean, at least bad for the next move. Very likely down to about 250-ish region if that were to happen. But long day of trading left to go. And as it is right now on the daily, I'm kind of catching its footing right here, I guess. I feel like I'm making a lot more excuses for this, for these assets than not, which is usually a really bad sign as well. This is one of those days where I'm just not going to be trading. I want to see the monthly closure. I want to set my long-term bias in and then trade from there. So we'll go back onto Bitcoin and we'll actually go over to our secondary charts right here. Is there anything of note? Yeah, the secondary chart's actually a lot more obviously bullishly biased. Well, Jesus, sorry about that, desk. A lot more bullishly biased here. In fact, maintaining above both the 10 simple and the 20 simple on the Trollender bands would suggest that we do pop back up and test around $11,000. So this is the most, bullish look that I'm getting right now on this asset, alongside daily MACD. This is on a 12-hour. Let's go to a daily. So here we go. Here's your daily MACD. Here's your daily D. Crawling up towards the zero read, which typically you do see some counter trend pressure around there. But we're not really getting much from the histogram here. There's no divergences to be spoken of, but we do see that it is maintaining, yes, actually the same thing that we saw in the 12-hour above the 20 simple and the 10 simple. Both of them have a slightly positive slope. The 10 simple maybe more neutral than the 20. But again, usually around the zero read, you will see counter trend pressure. So if there is going to be a fake out, if there is going to be a failure, it probably does happen within this region. But the daily is quite obvious here, actually. In fact, I think that the Trollender bands actually can get this one before anything else. I think that all my tools over here basically say, nah. And that means nothing. And my secondary charts over here, these ones actually do say upside, yes. And another test of the top side Trollender band at about 11,100 region, which obviously would have a chance to actually take out that last prior high or close on a new high. And then we could talk about moves back into the mid 11,000. So I guess I'm like very flaccidly short-term bearish, I guess, but I don't I'm not really getting that from Bitcoin. I'm getting that mostly from traditional markets. Bitcoin seems to be neutral to, if I'm looking at my secondary chart, it's actually slightly up. And so I want to be very, 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 very clear with that, because this is my signal to myself just not to trade today. This is just not it. Yesterday I kind of said the same thing too, and I mean there's no harm in not taking a trade. The analogy that I like to use with trading is that it's like a game of poker where you can wait till you have like the best hand of all time, but there's no downside to waiting. I memean, there is opportunity cost obviously, but if you have the best hand of all time, then your opportunity cost, well, you probably already factor that in, right? So looking at this right here, that's kind of how I'm thinking right now. Anyways, what else do we want to check out? Is there anything more to check out? We've already been doing this for 33.5 minutes. I think that this might be actually a good place to shut this one off. Keep these videos a little bit on the shorter side now. So yeah, actually, before we do that, let's do a quick look at the probability panel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the 11,100 tick to the upside right there. Remember, closure above there is reversal and automatically bullish for myself, looking for moves into the mid 11,000s. Downside target range. We could use the continuation point from Friday's low right here on the 25th of September, or we could use, I mean, on a daily closure, does anything really make sense here? I guess wherever the 20 simple is on the Trollender bands would be about right. Yeah, and that's about 10.7. We could use that. It's going to be a super high probability though, so I don't think it's all that fair. So I'm gonna stick with 10.550 for now, and we'll see what this prints out. Alrighty, pig, show me the money, baby. Show me the motherfucking money. And pretty even both ways actually. What's most likely to happen? Inside 45% probability versus above, essentially creating an uptrend, 28.5% probability, which is actually relatively high to be fair. In the below target probability, again, be getting continuation moves back down to at the very least 10.3, but actually quite likely about 10,000 to 10.1. Oh, it's kitchen just in time, baby, just in motherfucking time. 26% probability as well. So, what is this telling us right now? It's telling us what we kind of already know. We could use those more aggressive reads on this, and what I could do is I could use both the wick high from what we saw on the 20th of September right here to get continuation. Now that obviously would not confirm an uptrend, so it doesn't really do anything for the higher term time frame trend here, but it would, it'd very likely give Bitcoin a chance to test this region. And honestly, if Bitcoin does come back up to test around 11,100 region, it's probably going to break to the upside overall. That'd be a better sign than not. And we could still use 10.550 continuation of the downside. And obviously this is going to have a much greater probability in favor of the upside, I would imagine. And hold on, what exactly is that area again? It's 10.956. Okay, so it's actually a little bit further away than what I thought. Okay, and what would this show? Show it to me, baby. Yeah, actually very, very high. 39.96% probability. So there you go. So actually that is decently, or that's not just decently likely to happen. That's like very likely to happen. In fact, that's the most likely thing to happen if you're comparing it with the inside and the below. And again, that would not confirm a reversal here. Would just imply continuation back up to the prior high, but that would look good overall. And especially coming into the monthly closure, if this were all to happen together, that would look damn good for our next runs into the mid to upper 11,000s coming into October and November. So for right now, I'm basically just patient. I am, I'm just looking at this as a crab market sideways, slight downside twist, mostly due to traditional marks right now. And other than that, I think that is about it for me to say. So with that said, I'd like to wish you the best of the best and the happiest of the happiest. Take care, and until next time.